to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. Pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. Send your questions and comments to DJ at ArtistFirst.com. Here they are, Margaret and Michael Lyons.
Thank you, Z-Man. Welcome to another hour of Almost Anything is Possible.
He crossed us up a little bit, didn't he?
It's fine.
It's all fine. And tonight, this is going to be extremely meaningful because we're willing to shoulder the responsibility of doing this show.
Indeed.
And well, you were on a roll, so take it away.
Oh. All righty then.
Oh, I'm Michael Lyons.
Yes, he is.
We are not good at this. After 6 years, we're still not good at this.
And I'm Margaret. Are you happy?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm happy.
All right. Well, tonight, a question came up, the discussion in general, where most people are asking, what is the meaning of life? And how many times have we heard this?
Oh, my God. Sorry.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you.
Usually it happens when someone hits a moment of like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And they can't quite come up with an answer.
Existential crisis or a midlife crisis type deal?
Well, just in general. It's like, what is the meaning of life? And it's funny because I would get that question when we were at the Rock and Gem.
Yeah, at the store, for sure.
Yeah, because your typical greeting is hello, welcome. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And inevitably, you have one person who just turns to you and says, oh, what's the meaning of life?
Right.
And you look at them like, okay, that's not a rock question.
Nope. And you can get out right now.
No. And then they immediately, they go, oh, no, it's quite all right. It's not, I'm just teasing. And you look at them, and I just remember one gentleman who had done that, and a response just sprang out from my lips. And it was, you're here to live your life. You're here to experience life. And he stopped and looked at me and said, that's a real answer.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, well, okay. So with that question, it brings up that process of trying to give value to what you happen to be doing in that moment. Mm-hmm. And usually it's a comparative thing. In other words, if I do this, it's important. Why? Well, someone's paying me, is the usual response.
Right, or someone's depending on me.
Well, then it develops into, well, you need to do this because someone is depending on me, et cetera, et cetera. But clarifying why you do what you do is a very interesting exercise on an everyday basis. Because you'll notice that your value system, what you think is important, is the first thing that pops into your mind. But what is it that you are using as the
metric?
Mm-hmm, the measuring part to tell you that this is important. And that really is the question.
And oftentimes people use a very external measuring stick, like you just mentioned, money. People think, well, if I'm doing something important, or rather, if I'm getting paid a lot, it must be important. It reminds me of the I don't know, I guess it's a joke where somebody says, well, basically, I saw this incredible house and all these things, and it was so beautiful, had a beautiful color, it was beautifully situated, and people are like, oh yeah, well, whatever. And then if you just say to them, I saw this $700,000 house, although that may not be so unusual these days. I saw this $1.7 million home, and they go, oh, it must be beautiful, it must be, and you go, well, I was describing the same home to you, and you thought it was nothing but, whatever, not something special. But if I tell you it's worth $1.7 million with no description whatsoever, all of a sudden you think it's beautiful. And it goes to the sort of metric they're using for value. Just a beautiful description, or a description which is detailed and gives all the particulars, what my observations, what I thought of it, my opinion basically, is not good enough. But if you just say, well, somebody's going to pay a $1.7 million or $17 million or whatever for this home, it could be the ugliest piece of crap ever. But yet people will immediately assume that it's beautiful. And Margaret, they'll also put their own image on it.
Of course.
They'll put what they think a $17 million home might look like, and where it might be, and all this other stuff. So there's this whole full-blown, it's very similar in some ways to when people are inventing a story. When the ego comes into a situation and invents a story, I know what this one's going to do, I know what this one's going to do, and this one's going to say, and how this one's going to act, and this one's just like my Uncle Fred, and this one's just like my mom, and blah, blah. This whole invented story and plugging in all the details based on zero facts or almost none is sort of similar to if you say to somebody, well, here's a $17 million home. Oh, it must be beautiful, because they have this whole story concocted in their mind from the ego mostly, based on a value system which is external. And you could, if you contrast that to the little monk living on the Himalayan hill or wherever he was, and he had basically nothing, yet he was one of the happiest people I've ever seen, or heard about, because his value system wasn't based on anything that the world valued, or that the external, or the Madison Avenue, or the metric of money. It was based on something much deeper, much more personal, much more attuned with his particular life energy. And it wasn't for everybody. It would be considered terrible hardship. And it was hardship in one sense. It was abject poverty in another sense, but it was also paradise for him. And so, in using his own metric, we're kind of going off a little bit from the premise that we want to talk about, but this is a good digression. In using his own metric, he found the meaning of his life. And in using an external metric, I think you find it empty after a while. And we have a different thing to prosecute here, though, about what the quote of the evening, but it is sort of a similar thing in that the Peterson quote, which we could read,
sure,
and maybe we should read it first, but the Peterson quote is giving a value system in essence. Well, that's the crux of it, is it's a value system. But go ahead, maybe let's go for the quote, because we've digressed yet again. We're good at digressing.
Okay. Your life becomes meaningful in precise proportion to the depths of the responsibility you are willing to shoulder. Jordan Peterson.
And that's, it doesn't sound exactly the same, but I think I would say that it is, in the sense that what you started with the premise, people come to you with a question, and actually it's because it's within them. What is the meaning of my life? Why am I here? And I think your answer to whomever that was in the store was a good one. You're here to experience life. You're here to live it. But, if you look at it from Peterson's point of view, and his postulate is that responsibility gives life meaning. And he defines responsibility in that you're committing yourself. You're willing to shoulder. You're willing to invest your time and energy into something.
Right.
Which is also, as we've talked about many times, what gives you ownership. I mean, it's what makes the difference between something which is of value and meaning to you, a relationship. The more time you put, the more you invest into a relationship, the more valuable it becomes to you. And the less you invest, the converse is more than true. The more you pull away from a relationship, the more you distance yourself, the less it means to you. And in any relationship, whether it's between you and another, or between you and the inanimate, you have a relationship with that which you work on too. You form it, you shape it, you mold it, you put your time into it, you put your sweat equity into it, and you acquire ownership of that. It's yours. Why? Because you made it, because you spent your precious time on it. And then, his kind of deal of responsibility is saying, I'll own this from the point of view of I'll take responsibility. I'll be the one who is on the line, in charge, but also on the hook if things go sideways. It's an extension of self into the other or into the inanimate, and just saying that if anything is needed, you come to me. If anything goes sideways and wrong, it's my fault, whether it was or not. Whether I did something to do it or it just happened. It's on me, because I find this thing important enough to make it within my circle of life. I'm claiming it, and I think that's true. That gives it tremendous meaning.
Well, okay, the phrase that had caught my interest was, in a free society, you are free to choose, and you are free to live with no responsibility whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now think of that just for a moment. You choose to live without any responsibility whatsoever.
Yeah.
And most people would say, hey, that's great. I'm not required to do anything.
Free as a bird.
Mm-hmm. But think of that. Really think of it. What do you pay for that choice? If you have no responsibility whatsoever, Peterson says the price of that choice is nothing matters. Nothing you do matters then.
Right, you're almost a cipher.
And is that where you want to be?
Hmm.
Where nothing matters. Most people, when they come to this realization of, well, gee, nothing matters, they get suicidal.
Right. Totally depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the meaning of my life is meaningless.
Correct. So, I mean, really take hold of this thought. You choose to live a life in this free society with no responsibility. The price you pay is nothing matters. Nothing you do matters. Nothing that happens to you matters.
You might as well not exist.
Well, it's exceedingly empty.
Hmm.
And that emptiness, frankly, I would say is frightening to the person who you actually are.
Although I would say, and from the point of view that this is still ego bound, but yet it's an important step forward.
You have to make this realization that
right.
This is where the boundary line is.
Yeah.
Just saying, well, you have to push this aside and do da. That's still handles by the ego.
Mm.
The realization has to come to you that does your life matter or doesn't it? What are you choosing in this moment? Are you actually choosing that your life doesn't matter? And when you ask that question of yourself, there's something inside of you that says no.
Mm.
Screams no back at you. Like, what are you, crazy? No. My life matters. So turn it about and look at it and say, if my life matters, then I need to take responsibility for my life.
Exactly.
But that's a big one. That's an all-in kind of decision. You can't be on the fence with this. I'm partially in and partially out. Like,
Yeah. That's an excellent point. This is not, I'll be responsible today, but not tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Or well, today you can count on me, but tomorrow, I can't be counted on. Tomorrow and the next day, well, I'll be back again. Because you do that to people, or you do it to yourself. But if you do that to people, they'll stop immediately, because commitment is a contract. It's a compact.
Well, it's a contract or an understanding with you, by you.
Yes.
This is an internal commitment to your life.
Yes.
The ultimate in self-love.
Oh, yes. That you should expound upon that. That's awesome.
Just understanding that loving your life means that you will take steps to nurture it, grow it, bring it into some kind of healthy space so that it can begin to blossom. Eventually bear fruit.
You'll spend the time to increase your awareness. You'll do all the things that matter to increase your life. Increase your life energy, your life force.
Well, understand that you, at that point, are participating in life because you become that which is growing and expanding and exploring. So when that happens, it is a wondrous thing. It is a significant moment in a person's life. My life matters. And it's a tricky thing because there are so many things out there that want to convince you that your life doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you think? Oh, you know nothing about this. You have nothing to contribute. You have nothing to what value are you?
Right.
And it's no.
It's very seductive too. People will grasp that and fall into nihilism or fall into these pits of depression.
Well, but that's the point. The realization has not dawned on them that their life is very precious and unique. And you've got to be able to resonate with that, to understand that only you can live this life, regardless of what the outside world is telling you on a value system, that you're worthless, you can't do this, you're impaired, you're old, you're young, you're whatever, short, tall, fat, who knows.
And even in cultures, you can be classed as among the worthless. We talked about the caste systems and things, or in a certain strata, you're a serf, you're lower, you're less than human, you're less educated, you're this idea of external. Yes, sorry.
Or you're female.
Female.
Okay?
Or in some societies.
In many societies,
right.
It's an undercurrent that you are less than because you are female. And there was a long time ago, people were interpreting the Bible writing as, the female is the weaker vessel. Well, they immediately equated weaker with lesser.
Lesser.
You're worth much less than the male. That is BS.
Of course, but that's as you just said, this is a way of the external, in this case, a value system based on a improper interpretation, to tell someone to in essence convince them that you're worth less.
Right.
And the interesting thing is those two words, worth less, is also one word, worthless. And when you go from worth less, which is basically a little bit less perhaps or some degree, to worthless, which is completely without worth, it's a slippery slope.
Yes. If
you start down the path, and this is, again, it's sort of an ego-based path, because the ego is the one leading you into this nihilism. And as Peterson's path is, it's an ego-based path towards a non-ego-based path, but it's a good place to start. And we talked about it just a little bit before, but that idea of taking responsibility gives a positive worth at the personal level beyond that of the cultural or the external, because you say, give it to me, I'll do it, I'll take responsibility, it's mine. And in making those commitments, you're putting yourself on the line, because you're really saying to the other, trust me, believe in me, give me your needs, and I will fulfill them, and I will do it to the best of my ability. This isn't still into the true full consciousness, but it's a path of ego which gets you away from the nihilism and gets you away from the self-destructive behavior and the things which completely are negative in the ego. The ego can have positive effects, but it can also be so easily seduced in being told it's worth less, or worthless, completely worthless.
Well, it's examining what your value system is.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you using as a gauge to determine the value of your life? And most people, it's very interesting, because they'll immediately switch into what they do.
Yeah.
This is my role. I am whether it's a job that you are hired for, or being in charge of a group of some kind.
Cultural role.
Or
family role.
Right. They immediately go into, well, this is what I do.
Mm-hmm. I'm the boss. I'm not the boss.
And then use that as a way of gauging their value.
Mm-hmm. And then money and all that.
Well, and that is added into the mix to distract you.
Yes.
From the true value that you hold. It's a game that you wind up playing internally. You set it up and you continually compare yourself to whatever this value system may be. This one makes more money. This one has a bigger house. This one has more people interested in her.
Yeah, more likes.
This one has more likes.
Social media is like a complete vacuum-packed space of exactly that. A value system based on almost ether, on nothing, likes or clicks or whatever it may be, and completely saying whether I'm worth something more or less based on this chimera,
Well,
completely external.
Oh, darn The interesting part about it is the fact that people believe that these likes are a sign of people are looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're just looking at me. It's basically, yes, this person happened to tap your video or whatever you've written, but it superficially meets that internal need of being seen.
Yes.
Everyone wants to be seen for who they are. It starts out as, okay, like I got them to look at me. You know, it's the typical example when you see in school, in school, the boys are doing these crazy antics just to get the girls and other people to see what they're doing.
Right.
Watch, I'm going to, run my head into the tree.
Right. Yes.
Just, crazy stuff.
Crazy stuff.
I'm going to eat a worm. Just crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that is, speaking of that internal need, that yearning that we all have to be seen.
Right.
And initially you just think it's physical eyeballs. And that's what social media has done, is translated into eyeballs. But it doesn't mean that you're actually seen. It just means that there was a flash that went by.
Yeah. I mean, the whole idea of this followers or influencers, or these are all so, not the word isn't phony, but they're so
it's superficial.
Yes, they're so encapsulated. They only have value within this construct.
Right.
But then people buy into the construct, become, in essence, make this thing meaningful. It's sort of like, it's sort of like all these digital currencies, or these Bitcoin type things.
Yes.
The whole idea of a fiat currency, which is what these things are,
mm-hmm.
is that it has value because it has value, as we say it does. And unfortunately, when you in money is, as an example, a dollar bill, a physical dollar bill, is supposed to be a representation of something which is physical and real and has value. And let's just say it was gold. At one point it was, it's no longer. And when you divorce something like that, a symbol of value, from the value itself, and then say that the symbol itself has value, you're at a level of abstraction,
mm-hmm.
in that the sense that the value of something no longer is tied to anything real.
Correct.
Well, the social media is Inception. It's the movie where it's dreams within dreams within dreams. And now you're 3 or 4 levels down, and you're saying, my followers and my likes aren't even in balance anymore. Oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. You're already so far down the rabbit hole, or so far down in the dream levels that your reference to value are valueless. They're not tied to anything real.
You're floating.
You're floating. That's a very good analogy, because when you're floating, you have no ground.
Right.
Okay, so the ground truth of consciousness and self and existence, and the fact that you are a consciousness, you are a being, is where value comes from. But you have to realize it. The ego abstracts everything and loves this distraction, but then it gets off into the rabbit hole of being told what value means. And if what you're teaching your ego is valueless, the ego loses track of the value. And I've lost track of time, so let's cut it right there. Go back to the studio, contemplate the meaning of life, and we'll come back on the other side and talk more about responsibility.
Dan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side, as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Moonstones and murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some moonstones and murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is William B. Davis, the actor who plays the Smoking Man, or did play the Smoking Man on the X-Files. I'm also a writer, director, producer, and I am delighted to tell you that you are listening to the ArtistFirst radio network.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And we are back on the second part of the top of the hour, half-hour thingy-dealy. And
Here we are.
here we are. And tonight we're talking about responsibility, but really we're talking about meaning. And as we mentioned in the first part of the show, Peterson talks about responsibility as what gives life meaning. And what he means by that we've kind of gone into a little bit, is that you take responsibility. And Margaret mentioned that the converse, if you have no responsibility whatsoever, the price of that is that nothing matters. And that whole idea, that sort of nihilistic, non-responsibility, has unfortunately infected a large part of our culture. And it's not something new or unique to the young, but the current generation, I think, is being attacked in that way. To not, and social media and many other things are sort of encouraging this nihilistic take on life. But we had it too, and in every generation there is a sort of a vein of saying, well, you're not worth anything, your life doesn't matter, basically giving this existential crisis and forcing the ego down that sort of darker path. And I think the way out of that is what Peterson's talking about. It's still ego bound, because in essence you're starting from this idea of commitment, and taking a commitment and investing your time and energy and your life force into a relationship, into a job, into a family, or into your work, or into creating things, or any of those things are all in essence ego-based pursuits, but yet they're positive, and they reinforce the fact that there is a being, that those others in relationship grow you, change you, that in taking responsibility, you will be tried, you will be tested, you will go through the fire, and as with Tolle, trials, tribulations, suffering can break down the ego into its and reveal the true form, reveal the true being beneath. So this is the path. If you're starting from this idea of, am I worth anything? What is the meaning of life? Peterson says, stand up, make your bed. He's big on making beds. Make your bed and take responsibility, because that's a step forward. It's going into a commitment. It's going into a relationship. It's putting yourself out there and risking, and then therefore potentially suffering, and therefore potentially growing. And not, nihilism is nothing about that. That's all wasting. It's all withering.
Well, one of the reasons why he suggests that you just pick up things and make your bed,
yeah, which I love,
to start, is so that you, as a human being, can see a direct result of your actions.
Yes.
You were sleeping here, so straighten it up, prep it, so that when the next cycle comes around, it'll be ready for you.
Right.
And there is something very satisfying inside knowing that you influenced your surroundings. I mean, children do this all the time when they play. They want to know what an action will do to their environment, whatever it may be. Sometimes it makes more of a mess. Sometimes it cleans it up. They go through cycles where everything has got to get knocked down, and then everything's got to be put in its right place. It is a basic learning exercise that we all have. And then as you get older, you figure out whether or not you really want to do that, or will it actually help me, or you make decisions accordingly. It gives you the realization that you have power to influence your environment.
And what you do with the kids today, and in your work with the kids today, I think that the cycle when they go into the classroom, there's an opening cycle of greeting. There's the activities which may make messes. Then there's the cleanup time, and there may be several different cycles of this. There's outdoor activity. We get muddy. We come back in. We get clean. But these short cycles give them that reinforcement. Yes, you matter. You're doing this. You're making a mess. You're cleaning up.
Right.
You're having a fight with Donnie. You're sharing with Susie. Whatever it is, and it shows through role play and through modeling and through an adult, giving a perspective to the child's young life that you matter, that your actions, that you did this, and now little Carl is not feeling good because of that, and now we apologize, and now you take responsibility for your actions. I didn't mean to, and I'm sorry. And these little things really loom incredibly large later in life, because that whole concept of I did this, I claim this. It's when a child is called out and you say to them, "Did you do this?" and they want to run away from it, but if you've trained them properly, modeled it to them properly, you say, "Yes, I did this. I'm sorry," or "Yes, I did this. I take responsibility. I broke the thing. I did the whatever it is, and I want to admit it, and then try to make it right, and then maybe say I won't do it again." This is the cycle of penitence. It's the repenito. I will admit that I did something wrong. I will try to make restitution. I will promise not to do it again. This is part of this is in the cycle of penitence in the church, but this is modeling a very human cycle of that we're not perfect, but yet our actions are important and matter, and that you can do good or bad, or rather you can do something which results in some harm or something beneficial. And if you do something that results in something beneficial, you should feel that that's a good thing, and I'd maybe do it again. Or if you do something either inadvertently or whatever that results in some harm, you say, "I don't want to do that again," and I try to make it right, and I try to promise not to. So you grow through these cycles, and in what you're doing in the 3 and 4 and 5-year-old, these are so incredibly important, because you can do them in a safe environment where somebody's really not getting hurt, and then you learn, so that when you have the awesome power and responsibility of a 3,000-pound vehicle going 80 miles an hour, you know how to control that.
Right. Well, it's exposing a human being to understanding how the interactions work in their environment, in their world. This is what it means to share with another person, another friend, or another foe, and then another friend. This back and forth of understanding relationships sometimes are controversial, or you have conflict, but it can be resolved.
Right.
Allowing them to see that there is a space where it can be resolved by them, and that's big.
Yeah, or the whole emotional training you do with them too. Giving a space for their emotions.
Mm-hmm. Well, to acknowledge that that's part of what it means to be human. You're going to feel very strong emotions, and you can actually manage this. You don't need to be taken completely by the emotion that you're feeling, especially if it's anger where
Sadness.
or you can express sadness and let it go.
Mm.
I think it's a very important thing to be able to teach a little one how to feel the emotion and let it go, and not pull back that emotion and sit on it again so that they can re-feel it.
Mm.
Because they begin to identify who they are with that emotion. It's like letting go of anger. How many people do we know as adults need to figure out how to let go of anger?
Right.
Instead, what they do is they gather up the pieces of the anger they just expressed and stuff it all back in so that when the next moment comes, they can explode all over again. And you're like, no, that's not how anger functions.
Right.
And you're only doing that because you've identified yourself with the anger. In other words, you're saying to yourself, I am angry, instead of I feel anger.
Right. And if to this premise, when unmanaged anger explodes outward, and you have to learn, that you have to take responsibility for that.
Yes.
And understand that the first thing you could have done was to try and give it a space and realize it's just going to be a phase. But if anger escapes you and you explode outward, you don't stuff it all back in and pretend it never happened, or say, well, they deserved it anyway.
Right.
All those negative things
Right.
that reinforce that they don't matter and you do, or that you
Right.
don't matter. No.
Or they deserve that.
They deserve. So yes, your emotions are part of you, and realizing that you feel angry and giving a space for that, well, that allows you to take responsibility for it. Yes, I feel angry, and you introspect, see, why? Because this happened or that happened, and I'll accept that anger, give it space, be responsible for if I injured the other, if the other injured me. It's a completely different experience
Right.
than the explosion, the words that escape you that you can't recall, the hurt you may deal with, you may do, and then almost when you see adults doing this, saying, well, that wasn't my fault, they deserved it, I'm not taking any responsibility for that, I'm not going to apologize, I'm going to hate them forever. All those negative things are really rejecting responsibility.
Right.
They're saying, well, they deserved me to do this to them. And if it goes writ large, it turns into what you see today, unfortunately, so many times, where people will lash out, road rage, or this terrible wilding incidents that you see, where people tearing through stores or tearing through neighborhoods, committing acts of violence, sometimes heinous acts of violence. And then almost saying, well, they deserved it. They were looking at me funny, or whatever it is.
They got in my way.
They got in my way. They cut me off. This is, instead of saying this is a human being, I'm a human being, that nothing that they did couldn't have been done by me, and that my anger is, certainly I can be angry, but it is not enough of a justification to abdicate my responsibility to control that anger and to manage myself and prevent a lashing out or a response that is in an uncontrolled way harmful.
I think it's very interesting because when people feel emotions, they don't realize exactly what they're doing in the process. In other words, when you're angry, you are angry at something. You feel angry at something. In other words, you have a target lock on something.
Absolutely, yeah.
And to realize that you are target locking is an amazing exercise. It's like, wait, I feel angry at this. And this, it could be the situation that had caused it, but then you focus, even finer on a person. To realize that you're locking in on a person is really key, because you can take your anger out on whatever it is you're locking on. So if you're angry, you realize the situation's happened, you can target lock on something inanimate and then really just sort of just let all that energy out on that target lock. And then take a breath and go, okay. And you haven't hurt someone.
Mm.
And that's really, it takes a lot of awareness to be able to know when you're doing that, when you're locking in on this. And you have to understand that internally there's a part of you that's basically saying, I must destroy this. Okay, do not destroy a human being.
Right.
You got to get that in your head. You may not destroy a human being. You may not destroy an animal. You may not destroy something living. Take it out on something inanimate.
And even then, the responsibility for that, for your own energy,
right,
is still your responsibility. The fact that you matter so incredibly much,
right,
means that whatever you do matters.
Yes.
So even in the sense of an uncontrolled outburst, which you can see in children all the time and in adults, unfortunately, your next response should be, I'm sorry. Your next response should be, how can I make this better? Because you're not perfect. None of us are going to be without anger or without some outburst, perhaps.
The caution I would give there is sometimes people just want to say, I'm sorry immediately, without acknowledging the amount of energy the anger has generated.
Yes.
Which is a dangerous position to be in, because they think, well, if I say sorry, it should diffuse it. No. That means that you don't understand how to handle emotions.
Right.
That's what that means.
And that's a really good, fine, subtle point, because the words "I'm sorry" come out all too often in, let's just say, an insincere way.
Oh yes.
But sincerity, I think, comes in the next action. The next action, you can say the words, but then people want you to say, well, do you really mean them? And the really mean them part of them is when you try to make restitution.
That's still way past not allowing the energy to diffuse itself.
Sure.
No, it's not sure. You have got to diffuse it first.
I agree. But the case you were talking about, where I was going down the path of the case you were talking about, which was that people will, explode because they don't have good control over their anger to begin with. Then just say, I'm sorry, and walk away. And all that is completely abdicating responsibility.
Right,
well,
exactly.
I said I was sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
hear that.
You hear
that. And it almost engenders anger just hearing, I said I was sorry. And you go, you as so-and-so and so-and-so, because you're not sorry. And people know when you're not. You're just mouthing the words, because all you're really saying is, you deserved it, and I'm not sorry. But,
But I'm saying sorry.
But I'm saying sorry because I'm supposed to,
Yeah.
And I'm going down that case. The other case, of course, is because we are human and emotions sometimes get away from you. And even if you unfortunately are in a situation where you weren't able to diffuse your anger, you still have to take full 100% responsibility, even for something accidental. You with all good intentions cause harm under some circumstance, whatever it may be. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but regardless, you have to take responsibility. As a fully functional adult, you have to say, my actions are my actions. Even if I didn't intend to harm occurred. And, societies writ large do that because they say, well, you broke the law even if you didn't intend to. And you harmed somebody even without intention. There's still penalties for that. There's worse penalties for intentional harm, but there's penalties for unintentional harm. But yet you see people even today saying, well, they deserved it, so no, you are no less human than the other. And they didn't deserve harm any less than you did.
Right. And it's acknowledging that harm that has come about this whole conflict may have arisen because there was a misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding, yes. And
you have to make room for the fact that we don't communicate well as human beings.
So
even
true.
Though you think you're perfectly, oh yes, that's exactly what I meant. And I said it directly.
Right.
And I remember just listening to somebody explaining to me how they had said something directly. And it was probably one of the most roundabout
convoluted
description of what they said. Oh, I said it directly. You look, and because they had gotten to a point where they couldn't bring themselves to say, I really hate you in this moment.
To be honest.
I mean, like brutal honesty. And this is what I was trying to explain. So, oh no, yes, I really hated when they had done this. And I was explaining that. And I was like, no, I really hate you in this moment.
Right. There's a certain refreshing honesty to expressing emotions directly. And if you do it in such a way that you are genuine, okay? You
right.
genuinely are angry and you say to someone, I feel so angry with you right now about this,
right.
or express it in maybe not in words, but just, and the genuineness of emotion strikes a chord. Why? Because people relate. You say, oh yeah, this is genuine anger, genuine happiness, genuine sadness, and you connect at the parasympathetic level, but really at the human level of whatever I did really cheesed this person off in an in-depth way, and that emotion is validating because it's a genuine expression of emotion. But you're right. I mean, people will talk themselves to death and round in circles.
Oh yes,
trying to say how clear they were about their emotion. No, what you really just need to say in so many ways is, right now I hate you. I love you a lot, but I hate you right now.
Right. Or one of the things I was trying to teach the children was, I love you, but I don't like you right now.
Oh, they used to not like that very much.
Holy moly. You want to open a can of
No,
worms?
you like me.
You have to like me. It's like, I don't like what you've done. You have to like me. You have to like me. Everything. It's like, I love you. I don't like what you've done.
At the moment, and they had to take responsibility, and we tried to model that. And I think when you model responsibility for children, it does change them into better adults. But we have to be.
Yes.
We have to be responsible for the fact that we've come to the end of the hour.
Yes, we have.
So take it away.
Oh, well, I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.